Behind every web map in ArcGIS Online, there is a JSON definition that defines the web map and all its components, such as the layers, symbology, pop-ups, forms, and so on. We are going to access that definition and export it as a JSON file, which will enable us to back up or archive our web map. The backup is twofold. We also need to back up the web map item settings, such as tags, is it a favorite, delete protection, and so on. So let's go take a look at the workflow. Up top, we are importing the GIS class, which will enable access to our ArcGIS Online. We're also importing two modules from the standard Python library, and that is JSON. It's not essential to use the JSON library, but this will make the output file more readable. And we will import OS as well for creating our output file path for our JSON files. We use the GIS class to access ArcGIS Online. We need the web map item ID for the web map that we wish to backup or archive. I'm going to assign that to a variable called web map item ID. I will grab that item ID when I go over to ArcGIS Online after we go through this script. We set an output folder where the archive will be created. We're going to create a folder within this folder named the same as the web map, and inside that folder we'll create our backup files. We use the content manager get method and supply in our web map item ID. The get method will return an item object of the web map, which will assign to a variable called web map item. Now that we have our web map item, we call the get data method on that web map item. This will return the JSON definition for the web map as a Python dictionary, which will assign to a variable called web map def. Now the item object has a property called favorite that stores if it's a favorite or not. It is not held within the web map item dictionary per se, so we'll struggle to know if it's a favorite, and we want that information. So we're going to assign our web map item dictionary to have a favorite property, which we'll take from the item object. It's a little bit confusing there, but trust me, that's what needs to be done. We get the title of the web map itself. I want to assign to a variable called web map title. We're going to use this in the naming for our files, and also to create a folder within our output folder. And here we're doing just that. We're using the os path.join, and we're creating a folder path to our archive folder, which will be our output folder plus the name of the web map. If that folder doesn't already exist, we're going to create it. We now want the file path for our web map definition file and a file path for our item settings file. Our definition file will sit in our archive folder with a name of definition underscore and the name of the web map, and our settings file will sit in the archive folder. It'll begin with settings underscore and again the name of our web map. We then want to save our web map definition to a JSON file and our item settings to a JSON file. So we use the Python open function, and we're opening the file path to our definition JSON file, and we're going to use the json.dump to add the web map definition to that file. This indent 4 here makes it look nice and neat inside that file. We do similar for our web map item settings. This will hold the things like our description, our summary, our tags. Once again, we open up a new file, the file path for our settings JSON file, and we use the json.dump method on our web map item. The basis for an item object is a dictionary, and a dictionary will translate nicely to a JSON file when we use the indent parameter and set that to equal 4. And we'll open up the JSON files after we have ran this script. Let's not forget, we might have a thumbnail on our item, so we will use the item object download thumbnail method, and we'll also save that thumbnail in our archive folder. Before running the script, let's head on over to ArcGIS Online. Here in my blogs folder, I have a web map called I want to back up this map. And we can see that it is set to authoritative. I'm going to click into this web map. We have a thumbnail. It is a favorite. There's a summary set. There's a description. We can see we have several layers. We have a single layer, NIAH locations, a group layer with 4 layers in there, and a county boundaries layer with 1 table. We have our base map, which is the topo base map. In terms of use, I've just added in hello world. On the right, we have our tags. And if I click into settings, we can see it is authoritative and that delete protection is set on it. There is a search set for the layer NIAH locations for the registration number. Let's open up this web map. Here we can see our layers. Our NIAH locations has got a form set on it for using in field maps. We can see here that the registration number is required and that date field is calculated and read only. And we also have our table of NIAH information. This also has a form configured. And all this is going to be backed up in our configuration files. We go back to our NIAH locations and our pop-up. We do have related information set. I'm going to grab the item ID from the URL. I'm going to head back over to PyScripter. I'm going to paste in the item ID. And I'm going to run this script to back up that web map. You can see that a folder was created in the output folder path called I want to back up this map, which was the name of the map we backed up. And in there we have our thumbnail that was downloaded. You can see the thumbnail there. We also have 2 JSON files, one for the definition and one for the settings. I'll open up the definition in Notepad++. Let's take a moment to go through this definition. First up, we have our operational layers property that contains a list of layers in our web map. We have first the county boundaries. That's the bottommost layer in the web map. We can see the item ID, the feature service that layer comes from, the pop-up information, and the drawing information, so the symbology. We don't have any labels, but you'll see that there if we did. Next up, we have our group layer that contains 4 layers, and that's the definition for each of those layers before we hit our point layer in our NIAH locations. Now this has a form set, so we can see the form info property here and the settings for our form. We also have our pop-up, and we have the related records info because we have a relationship set to the table, and we saw that in the pop-up. We also again have the symbology. We then have our tables property, and we have the definition for our NIAH information table. That is the single table in our web map that has a form set on it for use in field maps, and it also has pop-up information. Scroll down, we hit our base map property, which defines the topo base map in our web map. The authoring app is ArcGIS Map Viewer, so it was created in ArcGIS Online and not using the API. The initial state is the extent that the map initially opens at. And for our application properties, we had set a search on there, so search is enabled, and we can see that we have 1 layer in our search. This is the ID for our NIAH locations layer, and we're using the registration number to search for points in that layer. Next, we'll have a look at the item settings JSON. I'll also open that up in Notepad++. Here we can see information from the home page for our web map and some of the settings. We have the title, type keywords, our description, our tags, our summary, the URL for the thumbnail, and what else we got here? We have our license info, the content status, and the ID for the folder that the web map sat in. In this video, we showed that behind a web map is a JSON definition, and we could extract that definition along with the web map item settings to create backups for our web map. Now that's all well and good. In the next video, we are going to show you how to reinstate a web map from those backups, so be sure to check it out. If you found this video useful, please feel free to comment below. The code for this video is over on our blog. That link is also below, and we also have courses for the ArcGIS API for Python.